You know what's better than one good weapon mod? Two good weapon mods. That's why today we're checking out the KO2 and Universal Pistol. Two wonderful weapons in one single download click. This is going to be a recreation of the Karus and USP weapons by Diacute. Now, Dia has taken the Karus model and the USP model provided from the Millennia mods and brought them over to Fallout 4. So, the Karus might be something you actually recognize as a weapon that has been in Fallout 4, and that's because it has. Millennia actually did make the Karus for Fallout 4. It's one of the very few Millennia Fallout 4 mods. The USP, however, I don't believe ever got a port over to Fallout 4. I think that one was exclusive to New Vegas. So now, we have a redux of two wonderful weapons, perfect for Fallout 4, with a bunch of really cool additions that hype up these weapons to an even better level than they were at before. Now, really quick before we begin, if at any point in this video I sound a little bit annoyed, my apologies. This is my second time recording the entire video because after doing the entire thing once, my OBS decided it captured none of the audio from my microphone or the game, so that's just great. Now then, when it comes to the overhauls to the Karus, since that's something we actually have in Fallout 4, there are a pretty good amount of additions that make this pretty different from the original, including a bunch of new attachments, including new optics, muzzle devices, etc., but also some new additions to the animations, adding full third-person support, which was not originally available for the original Karus mod, as well as some other fun additions and fixes that make this thing pretty cool. The USP, however, gets a whole new facelift with a bunch of new attachments that were never available in the first place. Each of these weapons, again, comes with custom animations, full integration into the game, including leveled lists, as well as a bunch of attachments and even matte swaps to add further customization to these weapons. Let's go ahead and start off with the Karus, mentioning that this thing, again, does have custom animations with full third-person support now. It has its own level list integration. If you want to get your hands on this thing, it will be found out in the world on Triggermen, Gunners, Raider Bosses, Raider Disciples, and Vendors after level 10. So it is also purchasable on top of the different enemies you can find it on. Having the Raider Disciples, of course, means this is going to require DLC to function, but it also means that the Raider Disciples get their own fun new USMG that is exclusive to them, so that's pretty cool. None of the other Raider gangs over in Nuka World are going to have it except for those Disciples, and I think that's a pretty interesting addition for a pretty minor faction. Now, the basic version of the Karus is going to come in 9mm, which means the base version of this mod is going to require munitions. But it does have multiple versions of the mod to remove munitions as well as add other features. So if you're a fan of munitions, just go ahead and install the basic version of the mod. You'll be happy with it. It comes in 9mm with some rechambers to 38 and 32. But if you choose the non-munitions versions, it's going to be locked to only 38. On top of that, there is one additional file, though, that adds tactical reload support for both the Karus and the USP, so you will have tactical reload options if you're a fan of that. If you're using that in your game, this will have built-in support in the optional file, which is pretty dang cool. Overall, the Karus is a wonderful little machine pistol with multiple ammo types, so you can utilize a lot of the early game ammos in a really fun, fast-firing package. As for the USP, though, we have a wonderful new pistol that's going to be found in the world just like the Karus, has its own custom animations with tactical reload support, a good amount of attachments for a pistol, including some rechambers. It normally comes in 9mm, much like the Karus, but it also has a rechamber to 45, so you have both the USP 9 and the USP 45 included in this mod, easy to swap out over at the weapons workbench. When it comes to finding this weapon, you can grab it on Triggermen, Railroad Agents, Gunner Operators, Tinker Tom, and Legendaries starting at 14. Now, some really interesting notes about the level list integration for both of these weapons. For starters, the USP mentions legendary drops, but the Karus does not. Now, I haven't gone in and checked the creation kit out myself, but I would assume that the Karus would also be added to legendary drops. So I'm curious if this is either a mistake on the mod page where it forgot to mention having this as an option, or is it actually not available on the legendary drops? Is that exclusive to the USP? Another additional note is that vendors are not listed for the USP like they are on the Karus, which means you will not be able to purchase this thing at regular vendors. But Tinker Tom is mentioned, and I assume that means it's going to be found in his shop, not his body. But who knows, maybe it's both. Either way, I assume that you can go ahead and purchase this thing from Tinker Tom specifically as sort of an operator-style pistol that is exclusive to the Railroad, and I think that's a pretty cool way to integrate this weapon. Now, we do have two weapons here, so we should go ahead and just jump in game and start tackling some of the finer details like the animations and attachments and other stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get in there. We've got a lot to speed through here. Let's go ahead and start off with the stats here for the Karus. Starting off with its damage, it has a base damage of about 17, comes in 9mm as I mentioned before, has a fire rate of 170 in full auto, a range of 107, an accuracy of 35, a weight of 4.3 pounds, and a value of 193 caps. Overall, pretty balanced. Keep in mind my damage is a bit higher because of some perks I have on that I cannot take away from my character, but additionally, this thing is going to be representing the automatic receiver. There are other receivers available for this weapon, so those are going to change, obviously, as you modify them. Par for the course for pretty much any semi-auto select fire weapon. Now let's go ahead and check out the USP as well, which comes in with a damage of about 19, 9mm once again, but can be rechambered to 45, a fire rate of 50 in semi-automatic, a range of 143, an accuracy of 62, a weight of 2.4 pounds, and a value of 155 caps. Overall, some pretty balanced stats for both of these guns. I gotta say I like them quite a bit. When it comes to the USP, I do have some minor nitpicks, but those come a little bit more in the form of the attachment section. We'll get to that in a little bit, but basically what it comes down to is there are some attachments that I really wish were included, but just seem to be missing from this mod. But first, let's talk animations. This weapon has some really wonderful animations. If you used the Karus before, you'll be familiar with the first-person ones, but there are some minor tweaks and a whole new suite of third-person animations. But just in case you haven't seen the Karus before, let's go ahead and check those out. Starting off with hip fire, we have a full mag dump. As you can see, a really nice top ejecting weapon, really nice iron sights, though a pretty good amount of recoil. That being said, it can be mitigated pretty easily with different attachments over at the weapons workbench. Now, for the most part, these animations are going to look pretty much the same as they did before, although it does have some minor changes to the bolt for both semi and full auto versions. There were some minor bugs with the original version that have been fixed since then. But now, there are also a full suite of third-person animations that were not present previously. So that's always a nice addition. But we also have the USB here, which comes with its own custom animations as well that are pretty nice. Everything lines up really, really well, which sometimes is not always the case for these really, really cool slide pull animations. A little weak on the sound effects, not gonna lie. It's a pretty dinky little sound for the firing, but still works perfectly. And the animations, once again, look really nice. Everything lines up just like it should, and sometimes that just isn't the case for this style of animation. Now let's talk attachments over at the weapons workbench. We've got two weapons to go through with some really fun options. As you can see, the USP can go from this nice standard black USP to something a little bit more out of the styles of Half-Life. And as for the Karus, we have a really nice version right here in the standard setup, but also some really cool alternatives if you decide to go all out and throw an attachment onto every single slot. So, I want to start off with the USP first because I've got a bit to say about it. The receivers go from standard all the way up through advanced, which is of course par for the course. We have a short barrel, a threaded barrel which allows for muzzle devices, and a long ported barrel. Now right here with this long ported barrel, we have a really, really iconic muzzle device that we usually see on the USP. It shows up on a handful of games and it's something you've probably seen before. Now with the inclusion of such an iconic attachment like this, I was left a little bit wanting when some of the other iconic attachments I expected to see were missing. We'll get into that in just a second. I'll mention the specific ones as we get to their categories, but I will say, while this is amazing, I do sometimes crave a little bit more, which just goes to show how good of a mod it is. If it leaves you wanting just a bit more out of it, that means it has a really solid foundation. So hopefully we could see some add-ons to this sometime in the future. For grips, we have the standard grip, a comfort grip, which doesn't really change the model, and a sharpshooter's grip, which will change the entire lower out. That is pretty interesting. For magazines, we have the standard magazine as well as a quick eject version. No extended mags here, which is kind of a shame. I would like to see a bit more in the magazine category. Even for something like this, even just stretching out the bottom a bit to give us a couple more attachments out of it would have been nice. But we also have sights. We have standard sights, glow sights, and a couple of reflex sights with different reticles. And then we have muzzle devices, where we have a budget suppressor made out of an oil filter right here, as well as an adaptive suppressor. Now here comes one of my wants. I really, really wish we had the very iconic suppressor you typically see mounted onto a USB, sort of the one from the SOCOM variant that has a really, really cool dimpled suppressor that just fits with the USB so well. I feel like most people expect seeing that thing, and so not having it here was a sort of disappointment. It's something I'd really, really like to see, just because I love the USB so much. I have my own replica of it at home, and I just want more out of this one. We also do have a section for laser sights, where we have 2 Nif Bash laser sights, one in green and one in red, and they're made out of vanilla parts. Now, typically, I really like the idea of meshing your design with vanilla parts, makes it feel at home with the base game, but in this case, it does sort of kind of clash with the textures from Millennia, and additionally, this is one of those areas where I am missing that SOCOM style huge laser block that is typically found on a USP. It has such a cool, unique profile that is so awesome and I think would fit right at home in Fallout. It's sadly not present in this mod. Something I'd really like to see, especially for the USP. I'd throw away the suppressor if I could have that really cool laser block. But sadly, I don't have options for either in this mod. That being said, there's still a lot of great stuff here. You have some really fun attachments that allow you to make other cool options. I'm just missing the stuff that I personally really want. Now we have option for a match kit and tactical kit, which you'll see will change the fire selector on the back, and change this weapon from 9mm to 45. So this is how you get to the USP 45. And then additionally, we have an option to change from standard material to silver, which allows you to make some more of those iconic designs that you normally see in media. This is some of the good stuff. I just want a little bit more. As for the Karus, though, we have a lot of options. A lot more options than we have for a typical pistol. For receivers, we have standard up through advanced, of course, with automatic versions of each of these, and they actually do change the fire selector model on the side. That is a new addition with this mod, so that's pretty nice. For barrels, we have short and long. For grips, we have the standard grip, a comfort grip, a wire stock, and a wood stock. For magazines, we have standard, large, and quick eject versions of both with some tape wrapped around it. For sights, we have a lot of options with standard iron sights, some glow sights, some ghost sights, which are like glow sights but white instead of green, and a handful of reflex sights, including the Doctor Reflex in multiple reticles, the Chevron Reflex sight, which has a nice little chevron in there. It's one of my optics right there. The Micro Colaminator, which is also one of my optics, has sort of the Cobra style reticle. You can't really see it in the preview menu here, but it's a very nice one. There might be some gameplay of it at some point in this video. We have the Vintage Reflex sight, the Professional Combat sight, the Micro Holotech Combat sight, the Laser sight, and the Short Scope. Don't know why you'd ever want to scope on this weapon, but theoretically you could put it in semi-automatic, put on a long barrel, a full stock, and a decent-sized mag, and have yourself a nice little carbine, which would be a pretty interesting twist on this weapon that's just not really possible in the old version of this mod. For muzzles, we have a spike brake, a budget suppressor, compensator, muzzle brake, covert suppressor, adaptive suppressor, and Soviet suppressor. This one probably being my favorite of the options here. I like this one quite a bit in terms of the aesthetic it brings to this weapon. When I look at something like the covert suppressor, I think even that would have been a perfect option for the USP as some sort of cylindrical device, but instead we got the monolithic style, and that's fine. I'm just still a little salty. We do have the option for a laser sight on this weapon as well, for red lasers or green lasers, which can be equipped with the top-mounted laser in addition to the bottom laser, so that's pretty fun if you want double lasers. We have options to change this from 9mm to 38 to 32, so depending on what kind of ammo you have in surplus, you can use any of these, though it is going to come with different damage trade-offs. And then finally, we have material selection where you have standard, silver, alternative, and a alternative silver. There's not really a huge difference in the preview menu between a couple of these, but I think that's something that's going to show up a whole lot more in-game because it's probably based on cube maps. Once the lighting starts interacting with these, I bet they look quite different. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and throw on the silver here, and we can just see what happens to this thing. A lot more apparent on the USP, but on the Karus, you actually got in-game to see the silver shine a little bit, but to be honest, it kind of just looks like a shinier version of the metal we already had. Either way, it's more customization options, so you can try out all of these and figure out which one you like the most. I'll probably be sticking with the standard material, though, because I just love gunmetal. But yeah, that is the Karus and the USP, otherwise known as the KO2 or Universal Pistol. If you enjoyed this mod, it will of course be linked down in the description, so you can go ahead and check this mod out for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, consider dropping it a like. It really helps out the channel. And while you're down there, if you enjoy my content, whether it's the videos I make here on YouTube or the mods I make on Nexus, consider checking me out on Patreon. It's of course completely optional, but it's a great way to support the stuff I do if you're a fan of it. It's always a really nice thing to see how many people really enjoy this content enough that they want to contribute, but of course, completely optional. Do not feel like you need to do that. It's just there for people who are able and willing. With that, I hope you guys enjoy once again, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!